Welcome, everybody, Erpers, to the 2022 POC panel. Yes. That was such an awesome video by Cam, wasn't it? So, I am Sheila Amato.
And I'm Patricia Ogura. And we are moderators for the POC panel today. Before we start, we would like to acknowledge the land that we are meeting on in this traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabewaki, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat, Huron-Wendat people, and it's now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississauga of the Credit, and we're very grateful for the opportunity to be here.
And now we're going to introduce our panelists. So, she plays Rosita, arguably the most accomplished revenant, and helped Winona reunite with Peacemaker, kind of, sort of. Please welcome Tamara Duarte.
She plays Rachel, the scrappy and resourceful teen who holds her own with Winona and Nicole and sings like an angel. Please welcome Martina Ortiz Luis.
And she plays Cleo, the self-appointed magistrate of Purgatory, whose family holds a little grudge against the Earps. Please welcome Savannah Basley. All right, well, thank you everybody for being here. So exciting to be in person. I want to start off by saying that, TV is a powerful medium. And growing up, I never noticed how that would impact me. Like, I would watch Sesame Street, and my favorite non-Muppet character is Maria. So I was wondering, did you have any characters that you really felt had a profound impact on you when you were growing up?
In general, or?
In general, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Or as well, a character that you felt represented by on screen.
For me, it was like Gabriela Montez in High School Musical. Because Vanessa Hudgens is half Filipino. And, she was like one of the only strong brown lead characters that I saw growing up. So I really connected with her.
Tamara?
That's a really hard question because I think it sounds really weird, guys, but she's not ethnic, and it's Inspector Gadget. Yeah, I just always loved being a private investigator and exploring, and other than that, I think I purposely don't remember my childhood. I need to work on that memory part of that.
Let's see. That's a good one, Inspector Gadget. Mm-hmm. I think I went from Inspector Gadget to Harriet the Spy in terms of spy movies. Yeah. Growing up for me, I think it was definitely Sailor Moon was the first one that I was really who is this? Did you collect the cards? Badass? No, I was more I collected the memorabilia so I could be her. Yeah. It was that and Spice Girls. I had a lot of the tiny little backpacks. They had it was so small, but it was it had Spice World on it, and that's me rocking the backpack, in case you're wondering what that is. Yeah, that's me in the backpack. So yeah, but Sailor Moon was the first one where I was who is this badass? Obviously I didn't know that's what I was saying, but yeah. I was who is this woman? I love her. And so then I think it went from Sailor Moon, and then it quickly jumped to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yes, because my mother allowed me to watch that earlier than I was supposed to, but that was also another one where I was like, I love her. And Brandy's Cinderella. I forgot about that one. That one popped in my head early. But in terms of like feeling represented, Brandy's the only Cinderella. I'm sorry, it's the only one. They keep coming out with new ones, and I'm like, they don't matter because Brandy's already Cinderella.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Whitney?
And a follow-up, did you, from any influences that you've had growing up, representation otherwise, did you draw for any of those experiences to portray your characters on Winona Earp? Okay, Inspector Gadget might be a little bit of a stretch. But
I think
go ahead.
it's interesting that I'm on this panel, guys, because I've never felt, and I was saying this earlier, like my father's part Brazilian, but I never connected to that because
Same.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I just always just felt white. I'm like, oh, that's who I am. And then I started auditioning, and they're like, you're Latin, and I'm like, what? No, I'm not. And it with Winona and with Rosita, I think I started to ask my dad more questions, and he gave me no answers. No, but I've never been to Brazil, and I never connected with that side. But then I started to do my own research, and built my family tree, and started to connect. And be like, oh, this is a part of who I am. And it just like being mixed, I've just never had that experience. So I think with Rosita, she helped me really understand that that is a part of who I am, no matter how much I want to deny it, because I never felt it growing up, which is really, strange for me. So.
For me, I know that when it came to Cleo, it was really important because I'm biracial, so I grew up kind of with my mother, and her side of the family is like, she's my white side, and my dad is the black side. And so I grew up mostly with my mom's side of the family. So there was kind of a cultural thing that is slightly different, this feeling of always being not white enough, but not black enough. And so when I was creating the character of Cleo, it was kind of, I did talk to Emily about that. I was like, do we know her backstory? You know, is this kind of like a family of misfits, that they're a family because they decided we're gonna be a family? Or is this just, I just have a different dad than my other two brothers type of thing? So that was something where, and she kind of allowed me to decide on my own what I wanted that to be. And in my head, it just kind of made sense that Ma just kind of got around. I was like, how can I say this? I was like, how can I say this? But yeah, she ended up, there's just different dads. And there's the one scene where me and Holt were fighting in the the sheriff's office. And it's funny because what we were actually saying as we were going back and forth, and I was just like, just because Mom didn't want to do your dad again. It was like so funny, actually. Like we were like going off, and so we did use that. And so that, to me at least, I felt like I tried to bring that kind of to the character of this feeling of not always feeling like she fits in with her family, and just really wanting to, and that's kind of why she was so obsessed with pleasing her mother, is because she never felt like she was really a part of the family. So she was like, if I can just do this one thing, if I can do this one thing right, I'm gonna feel like I'm supposed to be here. And that was kind of my little secret that I had in my head constantly. And scene. Sorry, I was like, and I'm done.
No, that was great. Thank you. Martina?
Oh, right. How do I even answer this question? I don't know. Like, I just felt like it wasn't. Sorry, what was the question? So please repeat it.
So do you draw from any early influences to portray your character on Winona Earp? How do those influences affected you?
Oh my God. I have no idea. Like, I genuinely don't know how to answer this question, and I know that this probably feels so awkward right now.
That's all right. That's all good.
But yeah, like, I think one thing that was really interesting about when I auditioned for Rachel was her ethnicity wasn't specified. So I didn't feel like I had to, like, fit into a certain thing or whatever. I just kind of went in and, like, was myself. Yeah.
Great. That's good.
They changed the last.
When you have a voice like yours, you don't need to draw from anything. You're like, I was myself, and I'm like, exactly. That's all you need to be.
Okay, so we all know that COVID introduced a huge paradigm shift in everything, right? So I'm curious, were there any changes that you experienced because of COVID, like in the audition process, did things change? Did you feel like there were more?
Was there a shift in casting for people of color? And we'll follow up later, but that's already a loaded question.
Sorry, the question was just.
The question was just
there a shift in, like, casting and, like, representation
from COVID, after COVID. Okay.
post-COVID? Wow, it's kind of weird, like, for me, because, like, I'm Filipino, so technically I'm Southeast Asian, but because of colonization and all that stuff, I have a Spanish last name, and, like, I don't, like, kind of what you were saying earlier, like, I don't look too Asian, I don't look too this, I don't look too that. And so I'd always get sent out for, like, Asian roles, but, like, Asian roles, when people say Asian in the industry, they usually mean East Asian, so, like, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and I don't fit into that box. Like, hardly ever for Southeast Asian or Filipino specific roles. Yeah, and then, like, I feel like this whole panel right now, like, we're kind of, I like to call us, like, the in-betweens, the, like, vaguely brown, you know? So for me, it was always just, like, vaguely Asian, vaguely Hispanic, or vaguely mixed, and we'll just figure that out later. So, yeah, and I kind of just got into this industry, started booking things in the pandemic, so I don't really know how that has really shifted, but maybe you guys.
Well, to answer your question, I haven't auditioned at all because I took time off. Prior to the pandemic, November 2019 is when I decided, I found out I was pregnant. I was like, okay, I just need to take a break because I'm just popping out babies.
It's tiring. Round of applause.
Yeah. So I have done work since then, but that I don't know what the audition process is like at the moment. I don't know what the climate is like, but I can speak to over the years and also auditioning in different countries. I always felt like the States just got me, like they understood me a little bit more than I was understood in Canada. For some reason, it's like they couldn't, like Martina was saying, they couldn't figure it out. And when I moved to the States, they're like, oh, we know. And it just kind of fit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
I definitely think with a lot more streaming happening, so it's just remixing it for you guys. I have noticed, I like to spend a lot of time online, and I like to watch my YouTube, and I like to read the comments on all of that stuff. I like to see what people have to say, and I think that with streaming and a lot more people at home watching stuff during COVID, there was a lot more eyes on things than before. Like, you know, everyone's seen the whole Friends thing. Everyone has seen the post where people are like, hold up, that wasn't that diverse. Now watching that back, everyone was white and everyone who was a guest star on it was white. you know, so everyone's watching these shows again, and like a younger generation is watching it who are used to things being different. They're used to the switch up now. So for them, they were like, how come this isn't the way it should be, kind of, I guess. So I definitely think from that, and they were kind of like, oh, wait, people are watching us. Oh, people are realizing that we do just put characters or things in there just to fit the quota. They can tell when we do that. Oh, they can tell when we don't have diverse people in there. So, you know, so I definitely think that people sharing their opinions more has changed in that way. At least I hope so, and I think that it's changed just from what I've seen as people, you know, sharing their voices more and making changes in the industry for good. Not just being angry because something didn't turn out the way that you wanted it to, but because, you know, you're like, hold on, I feel like there should be more representation. So that's really nice.
Great. That's a great answer.
Good job, guys. Brain power.
So on the topic of representation, representation matters, but thank you. Representation can be a lot to carry when you're the only one representing in a white, cis, hetero space. So what kind of allyship is helpful?
Can you say that again?
Sorry, what kind of
What kind of allyship is actually helpful in effect?
allyship is helpful?
I still didn't understand the question. I'm like,
Like
Sid, mais uma vez.
like the question
Diz em
was like,
português.
Sorry.
I think, if I understand the question properly, I
Sorry,
feel like
I can repeat it.
allowing your, how do I say this? Educating yourself and taking the time to do that. I don't want to say like taking the responsibility on yourself and not being like, hey, I don't get this. Can you teach me? Because as much, like, for example, I was someone who grew up in an all-white town. I was saying this earlier, I was even the darkest person I had ever met for a very long time in my life. I was the face of Black people in my town, and that was not something that I should have been given the responsibility for, but at the end of the day, I was. So I had to be very careful with the way that I spoke to people. I had to be careful with the way that I acted, because people would then, since I was the only Black person that they knew besides me and my sister, that means that however I acted was going to be how they then assumed every other Black person would act. That's just human nature. They were also quite young, so that's just how that's going to work. So for me, it was a lot of me having to go to my friends and say, hey, I get that you think that's funny, but that's not really funny. Saying like, hey, you're only half Black, it's not really a joke. I get that you think it's funny, but it's not really funny. I'm not angry, but it's not funny.
Yeah, putting your foot down.
And I would have to go and tell them why. Why is this that? Why is this that? So, you know, being a good ally is just taking the time to be responsible for figuring that stuff out on your own. Taking the time to read an article, or watch a video, listen to someone else's perspective, and just, you know, don't get offended and don't double down on the fact that you may not understand it, or maybe you don't quite get why it's offensive. You know, don't get angry about that, or you know, kind of put it on us to educate you in that way. Just kind of acknowledge that that's something that you got to work on and move on. If that helps, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
No, one of my best friends, we had this conversation, and we've been best friends for like 10 years, and within our friends, we had, and this sounds bad, but in the past, and she had said it herself, she's like, I'm like the whitest Black girl.
Yep.
And I'm like, and only the last 5 years ago, we sat down and had a conversation, because I told her, I'm like, I don't think you should be saying that, and I don't think our friends should be saying that. It just doesn't feel right. Like, it's all sticky and gross, and like, we should sit down and have a conversation. She's like, yeah, you're right. Like, this is not okay to say.
Yep. That's a good ally moment. Calling yourself out, not being like, oh, I'm embarrassed that we did that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just being like, hold on, maybe.
Yeah, but even if she said it and she's, it's not okay. So it's like, yeah,
Thank you.
Good ally moment.
yeah.
I don't know. That's just me.
Okay, well, thank you for those answers. So kind of going through the same kind of vein, what do you feel is the biggest thing stymieing the change in POC representation in the media?
Did you understand?
I didn't hear that. I think the mics are just very echoey. It's so hard to hear. I'm sorry.
How
about this?
Improved?
Okay. So the question is, what do you feel, or personally feel, is the biggest thing stymieing change in POC representation in the media? Holding it
What's
back.
the biggest thing holding it back? Thank you for explaining the words. I don't know. I feel like it's so hard to like look at what's holding it back, especially now at a time where like it is getting better. Obviously, there's a lot more work to be done, but if I can just kind of speak on a more positive note and how it is getting better, I think a lot of people are people are casting more authentically now, I think. People aren't getting a white person and painting them a different color and then putting them on screen. I think once
Or
again,
representing true to their culture.
yeah, representing true
True to
and
their culture.
for
Yeah.
example, even on Winona, none of the people of color on the show are playing some weird stereotype. We were just very free to just be
Yeah.
who we are, and bring ourselves into the characters.
Yeah, I do think that they're casting more authentically, and they're being
Yes.
called out for not casting authentically. And we were talking about this earlier. I was on Longmire, and I played a Native American, and I felt weird about that to a certain extent because I'm like, okay, you're going to cast the best person for the role. I understand that concept, but at the same time, I did feel like I was taking a role away from someone who is Native American that could have played that role very well and played into it deeper because they understood the culture behind it and what was happening in their own homes and with their brothers and sisters. And it's like, yeah, so I think now now more so than ever because of the internet and because of the comments and because people are speaking out and, having a voice, that it's not okay to do that, and putting responsibility back on casting and production and holding them responsible. So I think, yeah, they're I feel like, I don't know if that's 100%, but I do feel like they're casting more authentically to that.
Definitely think they're making strides towards casting more authentically, and that's really, I think, really good progress.
And it makes the characters better. I mean, understanding someone's culture is, as an actor, yeah, you can be the most amazing actor, but if you grew up differently in a religion or culturally, or it's way harder to play that character because, yeah, you can do all the research you want, but you didn't grow up with all that history behind you.
To really pull from, yeah. Sorry, yeah, that's a really good point. But also I think having more people behind the scenes that are POC, having more writers and directors and producers, people that are actually writing, kind of more in charge of the production side would definitely help, having those voices, because then it's also not on the actors to constantly be telling you, hey, I saw that you wrote this. They wouldn't say this. No one would say, you know what I mean? That's not my job to sit there and constantly having to be like, yeah, no, not this. That's really stereotypical. That's kind of race. You know, having people that are in the writer's room, having people that are producing, directing, being POC, telling those stories goes a long way. And I think being able to have the fact that there's more voices like that in the industry and coming up is also going to really change things.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And that was a fan-submitted question. Jason Bird submitted that, so thanks, Jason. So we're shifting more to some fan-submitted questions now.
Okay.
And one that I'd like to ask from Mary KK 2022 to all panelists. Initially, how did you review your characters' relationship with each other, and how did that change as you continue to shoot the season, whatever season you're on?
How did we see our characters at the beginning, and then how did it evolve?
Yes, especially the relationship
in
with the
relationship
other
to other
characters in the
people?
show.
Well, we never played together.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
I always saw Cleo at the beginning, to me, was someone who, as I said, was desperately trying to get her mother's attention and love. I feel like there was a constant voice in her head that was constantly like, why won't you love me? Just that, that's kind of what I was playing with constantly, was she just couldn't understand, I don't get it, what am I not doing? Which is very sad when I think about it. But that's really what I got from her, was just a desperation. And so that's kind of really she wore a mask, which is why she was so big. And the first scene where I'm in, especially for the chili cook-off, I really played that up, because to me, she was kind of just living in the moment of having all of that attention. And she was just soaking up that and just loved having the attention and also the power of it all. And she was a little bit drunk off of all of that. And then slowly, I think her being in such a dark house, and then constantly seeing all of these people that love each other, and there was just such a great relationship between all of these people that were around her, that she was not in the same circle with them, that I think she just started to change her her outlook on what love was, and kind of the type of life that she wanted. Even though she was still Cleo at the end, she did it in a very Cleo way. To me, I feel like she, by the end, she was a little bit less bitter and free. That was kind of the difference, really, was just a freedom and a heaviness that just had been lifted off of her.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, you may.
Sorry, guys, I'm mediating now. Was there a specific scene that made her freer? That, in life, there's a click. There's something that happens that you don't need your mother's love because she can never love you, or it's not conditional, or whatever it is. It's did you come to a point within the character that you?
I mean,
was there a scene that?
There's definitely that scene with Tim where I basically am crying, and he comes up and he's just nice to me. Yeah. And I think for Cleo, that was so bizarre to have a stranger just being, I mean, not a stranger, but someone, we fucking hate each other. Mm-hmm. Why are you being nice to me? Mm-hmm. That idea. And so I think just seeing someone be kind of selfless, and that just in that moment of just her despair, and just, having this man who, we're kind of at each other's throats constantly, and he just comes over and he's still nice to me, even still. I think that gave her a different outlook on life. Once again, in a very Cleo way. I'm making it seem like she like completely like turned around and was like a nun. Like, no.
A nun? Would you like to come?
Oh, yeah.
Can I bring you over?
Yeah.
We do a lot of praying.
Braid each other's hair.
I think the relationship, there's so much evolution with Rosita and other characters from season to season. The Winona relationship is my favorite because it's like so push and pull. And I think we got to a really good place in the end. And it's funny because relationships that you thought would, I don't know, it's always like interesting getting your opinion to be like, which relationships did you want to see flourish and then didn't, and then like it switched to something else, right? So I think the evolution of Winona's relationship with her, and then, you know, with Waverly, it just kind of didn't happen. So.
Season 5.
No.
Well, for Rachel, like, I just think because she was alone for so long and she met this group of people, I feel like you can really see in like the first half of season 4, like she still kind of has her walls up a lot, especially when she's first meeting the rest of the Erber fam, and like she kind of like uses those like sarcastic, snarky comments to just like push away real things, real feelings, which I feel like I also kind of do that in real life. So it was really interesting in 412 when like during the wedding, I kind of just like broke down.
Typical teenager.
Which I think was also kind of like a nice arc, because in the end she does kind of realize like this is her family now. These people have accepted her, and she can just like be herself and like feel loved and give back that love in this family.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, for characters outside of Winona Earp, do you have any characters that you have not yet portrayed, or you? Let me rephrase that. So, are there any characters that you have not yet been able to play, and find that it's scarcely given to women of color? This is a question from Camp Illustrate.
Like, what's a character that you would like to portray but is hardly given to people of color? I say this all the time, but like rom-coms, I think still need a little bit more spice.
Rom-coms. Guys, I did my first Hallmark.
Oh my god!
I was so happy, and I didn't play a bad guy. Right? It's like you're put in these boxes, and it's funny because just being on set, and I had an emotional scene, and you know, my husband's off in the rigs, and there's like all of this crazy stuff happening, and you know, the director called cut, and he's like, okay, it's a Hallmark movie. We gotta reel it back a little, because I'm so like gritty, right? I feel like that's all I've ever played, so it's like, oh, I have to kind of play it up here a little bit.
You have to cry, but cry pretty.
Cry pretty, cry less. Oh, yeah. Okay. Cry. How much? How much do you want? But the fact that I could actually go there, because it's in acting, it's like if you go hard, it's easier to like.
Yep.
You guys understand what I'm saying? Yeah, lighten it up. It's harder if it's light and then you're asked to go deeper. It's harder to do that on the day. So if you hit it hard and then they ask you to, you know, lighten it up, it's easy to do. So yeah, I've always wanted to do like just like a fun romantic rom-com, Hallmark feel good, sitting on your couch watching a Christmas movie. Yeah. And that my kids don't think I'm evil because I have red eyes on posters. in everything I do, you know? So they're like, oh. So yeah, I think I think that's what's changing too. And maybe just softening up who I am as a person has helped. I don't know.
Yeah, but like I feel like in most rom-coms, like people of color usually like the quirky best friend.
Yeah.
The sassy best
Or like
friend.
the love interest
Cabral
that
and
gets
I.
rejected. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if there's a love triangle, it's always like the person of color is like the one that ends up
To the
yeeting out.
side. Yeah, you get yeeted.
Um,
I would love to play historical roles.
yes.
But I don't know if anyone's familiar with history.
It's funny you should say that. On the last panel, we're talking about a line in the show where Kate says that people like me are written out of history.
Exactly. So it would be, I mean, Bridgerton, I guess, has like kind of changed it in that way, but I would definitely, that was always something where I was like, man, I just want to talk with a half British accent really badly.
Have you seen The Last Kingdom? The Last Kingdom on Netflix. I'm obsessed with it. I was like, I want to be in that show.
Yes. Vikings?
Viking. Yeah, it's like Vikings.
Yes.
Pretty much. Valhalla.
But yeah, so
too.
for me, that's kind of one where I'm a little pigeon-held in that one. But yeah, that would be something that I would definitely want to play. But I also just love playing villains / anti-heroes. Those are really fun. I always find that you can always give them a lot of, I don't know, you can go deep in your head, even if the character, you know what I mean? Like you can always.
Yeah, you have another one.
I want to play a villain. Someone give me a villain role, please.
Sorry, I'm laughing because she's like, someone give me a villain role.
I know, I was like.
With the cherry on top.
Very villainous.
Now, this next question is for Martina.
Oh God.
I'm sorry. But most of the characters that were introduced in season 4 were characters created just for the show. But Rachel Valdez has some history. She is it's implied that she's a descendant of the Valdez of the comic books that is a well-established, well-loved character. How did that play into preparing for her role?
You had so much to work with, girl. I wanted to be Valdez.
But Valdez was like, well, the thing is, like, I think they kind of wanted to step away from the comics because the Valdez they wanted to bring in was a snarky teenager, and the Valdez in the comics is like, she's been around for thousands of years, and she's like 6 feet tall, and they hired a 5'5" little skinny little me to play a Valdez. But I thought it was really interesting how I was able to bring up the story and like, I always, for me, I'm like, if we have another season, let's find out more about Rachel's history because.
Yeah. Why don't we just do a Valdez spinoff? It's Valdez.
Just Valdez.
Yeah, it's you.
Guys.
They can write it in. They can write it in. Okay.
I'm hiding behind this mic.
You're doing so well, girl. Guys, this is her like 4th panel, maybe. She's killing it.
This is Savannah's first panel, is it not?
What? This is your first panel? You're like,
Thank you. Thank you.
I didn't know that. I feel like you've
She's doing a lot.
Fake it until you make it.
It's almost like you're an actor. It's
I know.
almost like you're an actor.
It's like a makeup thing for a living.
All right, so we have a fun what-if question. If Rosita came back to Purgatory and saw Rachel and Cleo at Shorty's, how do you think that interaction would go?
I just heard Rachel and Cleo, but I didn't hear the
at
beginning of
Shorty's.
it.
I didn't,
At
yeah.
Shorty's.
Okay, so what's the beginning? So if Rachel and Cleo
No.
were...
So
Rosita walks in at
came back.
Shorty's.
Okay, was I my bartending?
No.
No,
You
I'm
and your
just in
convents,
shorties?
you and your nuns walk in.
This is a joke.
You and your nuns walk into a bar.
That's what I was about to say. I was like, this is the beginning of a joke, right?
And in that bar, they see Cleo and Rachel. What would happen?
What would happen?
Buy her a tequila because I think she's cute.
Damn.
The Cleo thing.
And I'd give you a pamphlet to join our nunnery.
She'd dig it.
Yeah, dig it, Valdez.
I'd be third wheeling, I guess.
This is my question. Has Valdez and Rosita met in the past?
No.
Ever? No, I'm just saying.
Oh, Dia.
We're both. We've known each other. I mean, not known each other. We've been alive for thousands of years.
No, I haven't.
Oh, you have.
But you probably
yeah, you
met
haven't.
my
Yeah.
my great aunt or something.
Yeah.
Or my,
I'm like, oh, that bitch.
yeah. I
You're
feel
like
you'd
part
be
of that.
You look like someone.
You look like someone I know.
Someone fanfic that.
I think they'd all get
I think
along.
we got the answer.
Yeah.
I think they'd get along. Both Cleo and Rosita, we'd be like, you're a bitch, I'm a bitch. Hate this bitch. And then I'd be like, don't worry, my friend's cool. And then you'd be like, okay. I
like, fine,
feel like,
I
and
still
that's
have my
exactly
eye
how the
on you.
conversation would go.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that is a good place to leave it. So we've come to the end of our panel time, so I'd like to thank our wonderful panelists for their time today. Tamara, Martina, and Savannah. My awesome co-moderator, Patricia Ogura.
And thank you very much, Sheila, for inviting me to be here.
Our wonderful ASL interpreters, thank you so much. And again to Cam for that wonderful intro video. Thanks.
And a big thank you for the wonderful people in the back, making sure that this is running.
Ah, there you are. Hello.
Thank you to ACON for the organizers, volunteers, and to everyone here for being part of this panel. Enjoy the rest of the convention.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.